Hi, my name's Scott MacArthur, and thank you very much for tuning in to my YouTube channel, The Edge of Next. And today I'm delighted to say that I'm joined once again by one of my dear friends and one of the best storytellers I think I know in the United Kingdom, and that is Michelle Mills Porter. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Scott. Thank you.
I just say these things. I don't really mean them, Michelle. You know, I just say
it to everyone, don't you?
Definitely. If no one believes me, you have to go and watch all my videos to check that I've said that every single time. Anyway. So today we're going to do something a little bit different, and something that Michelle and I have been talking about for a few weeks, and I think it's quite interesting. And it's something that is about, well, it's about a number of subjects, and I'm going to let Michelle tell the story before I make any judgments on it. But I think it's going to be different for you because it's about it's actually a story. We're not trying to solve the planet or solve the problems in HR or OD or whatever. We're going to listen to a story, and we're going to think about what that means. And Michelle's going to tell us what it means to her and what it's done in her life. So does that sound like a reasonable introduction, Michelle?
Yeah, kind of. I guess it's the first outing of the real story behind the story.
Oh my goodness.
That's what it feels like to me, because quite a few people in the speaking industry or clients, they might know the story and think they know my story. And that will be, you know, how I survived the tsunami and what I learned in the aftermath and what I've done since.
Yeah.
But actually, nobody knows the backstory to that.
So this is an exclusive. I like that. Excellent.
You have my cherry on this one.
Oh, I can just see that in the edit video. Excellent. Okay, so you can probably tell that Michelle and I are quite relaxed talking to each other. So anyway, right, Michelle, I'd like you to take over and let's hear about your story.
Okay, so the reason this is coming out is because, you know, as we evolve, we kind of and look back on things. I realized that I've never really told this background story to you know, to my tsunami story, and it's really important because I don't think that I would have seen things the way I did during that face of adversity if I hadn't have previously had this experience. So it's actually incredibly important. And it's very painful, which is possibly one of the reasons that I don't get it out very often. I've told people when I think they need to hear it, but because it's quite controversial, I've not really, you know, I've never done this with it. So let me just tell you what happened to me.
Okay.
So I'd had quite a lot of adversity. I got married very young. I joined the Air Force at 17, and you know, and I got married very young, and it was an extremely abusive. Even if it was a short marriage, it was very, very abusive and extremely painful for me. And then I left the Air Force and left my whole world behind and found myself in a world where I didn't have any experience, any relevant experience to be hired. So I remember like flicking through the pages of the newspaper and looking at the sits back and thinking, you know, this sales thing looks good. You know, there's loads of vacancies and it's well paid. And there's if I can be a salesperson, I'm never going to be short of a job. So kind of threw myself into that. And, you know, back in the early 90s, sales was quite a shark infested arena. And so I was kind of going through jobs really quickly, especially because I needed to get on and advance, you know. So I was just, it got to the stage where I think I'd lost a job which I really wanted, and I'd done my trial period, but they decided not to take me on, and it wasn't my fault. It was because I'd had a client who wanted to romance me, and he turned up at the offices with you know, with flowers and all that kind of thing, and I was looked upon as though I'd encouraged that, even though I hadn't. So there was all this unfairness, and I was just absolutely desperate. I didn't realize at the time, I was horrendously depressed. And I did what I always do, Scott. I ran away to my healing place. My healing place is where the family have a caravan, and we've been there for 6 generations. and it's right on the seafront in the mid-coast of Wales, in a little tiny village called Llanrhystud, and it's just a very special place to me. And I thought, I just drove down there, stayed in the caravan for a little while, and I thought, do you know what, if I can do something creative, if I can write, then I can get rid of a lot of this feeling, and I can get rid of it, and then I can go back and, you know, carry on with my life. So I was there to heal, you know, to kind of lick my wounds. And I remember I'd been there for a week, and I only had a week, you know, before I had to go back and carry on with my life. And I hadn't written anything. I had writer's block. And it was more than that. I actually just felt desperate. And I remember it was the day before I needed to come home. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. And I walked out onto the seafront. And I just stood there on the seafront, and I thought, I don't have anything. I've got no inspiration. I've got no creativity. I've got no love in my life. I've got nothing. And I remember just looking up to the sky and saying, if there is anything out there, please give me a sign, because if you don't give me something to hang on to, I don't know what I'm going to do. I felt like I was going to do something stupid. I felt like walking straight into the sea and never coming back, you know. And I just said this in my head or out loud, I can't remember. And I just looked at the sky, and I just carried on looking there for a little while. And something happened very slowly. I started to see things with a different perspective. I suddenly realized that these waves that were crashing on the shore weren't just waves crashing on the shore. They'd come from foreign lands, you know, who knows what tales they'll bring. And I started to see things in this kind of poetic language. It was like this creativity was opening up, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is giving me some creativity, some food for thought. Maybe I can go and write some poetry and get this out of my system. And as I started to feel that, I noticed this rainbow appeared on the horizon, way out to sea, this bright rainbow. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Look at that rainbow. And without any sense of distance or time at all, it just came to me. And it came right up to me. Now I know that, you know, rainbows, when you try and find the end of a rainbow, they go away from you. They don't come to you. So I stood there on the shoreline, you know, barely, didn't have the courage to breathe in case I blew this phenomenon out to sea. And I just let my eyes dart around to see if there was anyone there at all. And of course, there wasn't a single soul. I was on my Todd. And I was thinking, nobody is going to believe this. This huge rainbow has just come to me out of nowhere. And here it is in front of me, so wide, I could have walked into it and not come out the other side. It was just vast. And I was sat there thinking, this is amazing. I can't believe this. And I thought, is this a sign? Are you answering what I just asked? Or is this just some kind of, you know, freak of nature? And as I thought that, this rainbow seemed to kind of sink into the water, and it started to go misty and disappear. And I remember saying, in my head, I think I just went, no, don't go now. If you go now, I'm going to think that you are just a freak of nature. I'm not going to believe that you are a message for me. I'm not going to believe that you are what I asked for. And I just felt my whole soul sinking. I'd had this spark of light, but it wasn't enough to, you know, to last. And I just felt my whole soul sinking into the water with it. And with that, this rainbow bowed straight over me and enveloped me. And oh my God, I mean, I get goosebumps talking about it now, because the colours were amazing. It's like they weren't real colours. They were blinding, but they were still misty. There's no solid colour. It's not, you know, not like what a child paints on a piece of paper. It was just this vast space. But when that rainbow enveloped me, I felt the most incredible love that I can imagine. I felt like my heart would burst. It felt like generations of my family that had been there before me had been looking after me all of my life, and I never knew, and they were all showing themselves to me, but I couldn't see a single figure. All I could see with this rainbow is it was just a feeling. And there was also a feeling that I could hear thousands of voices just quietly speaking, and yet I could still hear the waves and the seagulls. So I couldn't physically hear any voices, but it was a feeling of these voices. And I just felt like it was this incredible, massive hug. And it was just euphoria. There is no other word for it, but total euphoria. And I just thought, yeah, okay, I'm listening, I hear you. This time, when the rainbow faded, you know, and disappeared, I ran to my caravan and I got my pen, I just went bleh, and I just kind of wrote this poem down. It felt like I was channeled, and it just fell on the paper. I don't think I've ever touched it since it did that. You know, it probably needs a lot of work, but it just is what it is. And every time I stopped and looked up, wherever I looked, there were little tiny rainbows just peeping out of the trees, you know, on the hills and things like that, as if it was to say, yeah, we're still here. And I don't know what it was, you know, and the thing for me, Scott, is, you know, people, I have so many opinions. If I tell this story, you know, Barnaby, a lovely friend of mine, Barnaby is very grounded and very scientific. And he says, Michelle, rainbows are a different vibration. What you're experiencing in that euphoria was a different vibration, and it's all explainable. So I understand, you know, there's a scientific view. I have friends who are very religious saying, Michelle, why can you not see? That was God. These are your angels. And I'm like, okay, should I believe in God? Should I become a Christian because of what I saw? But that doesn't necessarily feel right. And then I get people, I spoke to a lovely psychic only last week who said, Michelle, it's your higher self, your psychic, and you know, this is what it is. All of these people have got their own opinions, and they're all absolutely firm about what it is that I should believe in. And the funny thing for me is, for the first few years after that happened, I kept thinking, I should believe in something. Place your feet firmly in one sector or another, Michelle, and say that that's your belief. And it took me quite a few years to realize I don't need to do that. I don't need any answers. The feeling that rainbow gave me was that I don't need to ask the question. I don't need to have the answer. I just knew that feeling of so many people that loved me around me meant that I would never, ever, ever feel that sorrowful loneliness that I felt at the moment that I asked for it.
Right. Okay. Wow. Wow. And what's happened since?
I think I call it my angels. I don't know what else to call it. So my nickname for it is, you know, that rainbows are my angels. And funnily enough, rainbows come to me now. Now, you might say that this is the reticular activated system. You know, if you're into your NLP or your psychology, you might say that it's because I look for them, that I see them more often. I'm sure all of that's true. But my friends, I wanted my friends to call me the rainbow maker. Someone called me a rainbow maker once, and I wanted that to stick, but it turned into the rainbow witch, thanks to Ben. So the rainbow witch it is. I have been on several occasions, you know, I've had my parents in the car and we've been driving along, and I've pulled over to the side of the road, and they've said to me, Michelle, what are you doing? And I'm like, there's a rainbow coming. And they go, Michelle, there is not a rainbow coming. That's a snow cloud and it's freezing cold. There is no rainbow. I said, just get out of the car and get your cameras out. And we've done that, you know, we did this mid-Wales. We got out of the car, got the cameras out, and they were sat there going, yeah, watch this then. You know, 2 seconds later, this rainbow started to appear. I literally have a sense for where rainbows are going to appear now. And I do have a sense that there is something looking after me. Because in the times when I really need it, if I ask for a sign, I get a sign. some people might call that coincidence. You know, I remember, you know, when I had cancer, I had a very rare form of skin cancer it's the only kind of skin cancer that's not caused by the sun. And I remember I'd been, you know, very matter of fact about it, not a problem at all. But one night I just kind of sat out in the back garden and I just went, oh my God, I've got cancer. I've got to try and get rid of this. And I remember asking for a sign then. And you know, I had this, I said, if my angels are there, you know, please let me know it's going to be okay. Thud, massive apple fell off the tree onto the ground. I'm like, oh, that's funny. That timing was brilliant, wasn't it? No, really. If you are there, give me a sign. Thud, another apple. And I'm like, there's no wind, there's nothing. So there are several times in my life where I think if I ask for help, sometimes I feel that I'm being looked after. During the tsunami, I felt that someone was looking after me. I felt that someone was, you know, trying to protect me. I've been attacked twice. I'm not a victim. The first guy, I broke his jaw. What?
It's just typical you. I can just imagine you whack.
Well, I didn't thump it. What happened was he pulled my handbag and my keys,
Right.
my car keys fell on the floor. If it was my own car, I wouldn't have minded, but it was a hire car. And I thought, I'm going to really get in trouble. And he grabbed the car keys. So I just automatically just kicked and I just heard his jaw go. And it was, the most sickening sound.
Well
But so I didn't mean to, you know. But anyway, the second time, it was really bizarre because I fought and screamed like a banshee. It was in the dark lanes of the jewellery quarter in Birmingham, and I was just leaving a client and I was attacked by this guy. And I remember screaming and fighting like a banshee, and he literally punched me to the ground. And when I was lying on the ground, scrabbling to get up, I was thinking, you idiot, Michelle, you idiot. You should have just given him the keys, given him the money, whatever he wanted. But it's too late because my fight, flight or freeze is stuck on fight. I can't change that. And I fought back. But after I'd got up, you know, I realised, and once the police came and everything, I realised there was not a single scratch on me. And even when I got home, there was I had patent boots on, you know, patent knee-high boots, not a scuff, not a scratch. None of my clothing was ripped. All I had was the tiniest little red mark. He punched me to the ground there. And all I had was the tiniest little red mark. And I just had this feeling like someone had put this glass dome over me and had protected me. And I guess it's a tricky one because I don't know. A lot of people are going to think this is woo-woo. A lot of people are going to say, Michelle, this happens to me all the time. What do you want about? And I don't really know, you know, what people will make of it. All I know is what I believe. And I believe that there is something in this. And I don't know what it is.
Do you need to know? Do you need to justify it?
It keeps creeping back, Scott, because you know I like my science. You know, I like my science. I like my woo-woo. I like my science. And I guess I'm bridging the gap. So I think I have these experiences, and I think, do you know what? If the rainbow comes to me again, and they do quite often, especially when I'm in Llanrysted, and when they come to me, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I don't need to know. And then when I don't have an experience for a while, it plays on my mind, and I think, oh, should I go to church? Should I explore my spiritualism? Shall I go and see a psychic? What shall I do? And so it kind of creeps back, and then again when something happens, I just get that feeling of I don't need to know. It's the most wonderful feeling of just be enough. Just be enough and be in the moment, and nothing else matters. And it's like a little piece of sanity, you know. It's just beautiful.
And in terms of sharing the story, do you think or hope or wish, I don't know what the word is, Michelle, that story could have agency for other people? Is that something that you're thoughtful about, or, you know, where is your head with it? You know, this is the first time you've spoken about it, and that's brilliant. But what do you want to do with it? Because it's you know, stories are important, you know, and that's your important story. So what do you want to do with that story?
I guess, you know, you and I are speakers, and we know that what we're trying to do is we're trying to influence people to make change, you know, or pass on a message that we think is important. In my keynote, the Magnificence of Humanity, I talk about the fact that the story is just the wrapping paper. It's the content that's within that. It's the lessons that you share with people. That's the real gift. And I think there's a part of me that thinks, because I haven't been telling people the whole story, because I've not gone to the backstory, then maybe I'm doing myself and them a disservice.
Yeah.
So I think when I started out as a speaker, you know, you think about who is going to hire you from the corporate world, who's going to pay for your talks. And, you know, actually, it's not about that. It's about how many people you leave something important with that makes a change. And for me, what this means is actually, I don't think I would have been so open-minded and so open to what was happening, and being in a place where I could watch what was happening in the aftermath of the tsunami and pick up on the nuances of behaviour and understand that these are people's core values at play, and this is what happens and what is needed for the sheer power of collaboration to work. I don't think I would have been able to observe everything that I did if I hadn't have had that influence before of seeing something that is magnificent and feeling calm in that space. So I think what I really want from this is, I want people to be able to think that whether they're in a corporate space or a social space, wherever they are, there doesn't have to be a rule as to what you believe, and there doesn't have to be a rule in what you're allowed to say. And if I want to say I believe in angels, or that I'm psychic, or that you know, that I'm a Christian, whatever that is, I should be able to say it without feeling anyone is going to say that's a bit woo-woo. You know, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, the more people that I talk to, the more I realize that everyone has had experiences like this. You know, maybe not the same experience, but similar experiences. And most people I speak to have had an experience that they either put in the bag of being, you know, a religious experience, or, you know, a cathartic experience, or a religious experience, or a, you know, psychic experience, whatever. And they've all had them. So maybe telling this will allow people to say, well, you know, if Michelle can talk about it, then I can talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, I think the other thing that, and this is just an observation, is that, you know, people telling their stories enables you to see them as they are. So you start to develop empathy and better understanding of that other person. So that story, a bit like you always call it your keynote. It's quite interesting that you always call it your keynote. I wouldn't, I don't know what I would call it, but your other story about the tsunami, I see a good link there. I mean, I'm on the, as you know, I'm on the woo-woo side of things. I mean, I'm not, I won't get sucked into that, but I think it doesn't need a label like that. It doesn't. I mean, I could easily go off on, you know, God, which God? There are 3,000. Why would you choose the Christian God and not the Egyptian God? You know, but I don't want to go down that route, because I don't think it's got any value. You know, I don't go down that route, and that's my natural inclination with these stories. But there is a thing called awe, which you experience by the sound of it. That's a real thing. And it doesn't matter whether people believe you or not. You experienced awe. And for me, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Do you know, I think it was a beautiful friend of mine, Katie Roper, She said to me many years ago, she said, Michelle, if someone else was in the same position as you at the same time and saw that same rainbow, they would have a completely different opinion of it.
Yeah.
And I know now, having built, the core values analysis, and knowing that my highest core value is one of the aesthetic nature and being able to see the awe in many things, then maybe that is simply a tendency that I have. Maybe it is a proclivity. Maybe and maybe it is the way that my brain creates the neural pathways and accesses the different parts of the brain. Maybe it is, but there's something else that I want to tell you, which if you didn't think this was woo now, you're gonna know, because all of my life, I told you that this, my caravan, that's been my healing place, my spiritual place, my place of fulfillment all of my life. And the first time I went there, I was six months old, and I've been at least once a year, every year of my life, and I'm now 52. So I think I always had this reoccurring dream that I had almost every night of my life. And this reoccurring dream, at Llanrhystr, there's a stony beach and it's quite a steep slope. But in my dream, that is massively pronounced, and the slope is huge. And in my dream, the waves were always massive. I mean, massive swells, like a tsunami wave. And I was always kind of swimming on the top with no fear at all. I loved it. I was just in that wave, enjoying it, feeling in control, everything. I had that reoccurring dream almost every night of my life until the tsunami. Now, when the tsunami hit, I wasn't anywhere near as afraid as I thought I should be. And I almost felt prepared. So when I saw it, I talk about it, and I talk about how it smelt, and and how vile it was, and all this kind of stuff. But in terms of my own personal fear, I was nowhere near as afraid as I should have been. And I have never ever had that dream since. So right up into my adulthood, I was still having that dream. Right. What's that about?
No idea. But I mean, as you said though, do we need to have an idea? I mean, I'm drawn to, well, this guy here, skulls. I've got them everywhere, and that's because for me they demonstrate how short life is, and therefore that you should squeeze every ounce of life out of the time that you have. The 28,000 days that we have on average, and that means a lot to me. And for me, it's a motif. That's how I view that. I don't see it as a spiritual experience or anything like that. I mean, I'm not even sure I know what spiritual means, but I have motifs in my life, and that works for me. But like you just said, I don't think it matters if it doesn't work for anyone else. I don't think it matters. But what it does do, as I said a minute ago, it does open up a better understanding of you by you telling that story, in my opinion. And I think that's lovely. Honestly, I do. It's lovely. And I think we have a tendency these days, and I have personally had a tendency to do this maybe 10 years ago, to put our feet in a camp and say, well, I believe this or I believe that. I look back on myself back then and say to myself, you idiot, because you're automatically cutting out a whole other way of seeing what it is to be a human being. If you look at just on a very simple example, religion's quite a good example, because I mean, I'm an atheist, but some of the people that I admire, like Gandhi, Oliver Sacks, were religious. So do I suddenly not read Gandhi and Oliver Sacks because they believed in what I call a space fairy? Well, the answer is no. It would be stupid to do that. I'll have a debate with you about whether there's any sort of other thing going on up there. Absolutely. But that doesn't preclude me from admiring someone who takes something significant from it and wishes to share that with other people. It's just
I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of, being inclusive and open to diversity, because I guess that I've been afraid of people saying, you know, Michelle's woo-woo, we can't have her in the organization, or, you know,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing, which is, you know,
Yeah.
actually that's just, it's not even scratching the surface of what humanity is about, is it?
It's not. I mean, it's a bit like, you know, if you have an open mind, you should have an open mind. Don't have it too open so your brain pops out. Yeah. But I mean, I remember my other half, Samantha, she likes tarot cards. Tarot cards are nonsense on any scientific or rational basis. They are absolute nonsense. However, I love doing tarot cards because it makes you think. It just, they're sitting there and you go, and she'll say, I don't know, Queen of Bananas or whatever it is, or the four of jumpers. I don't know what the hell it's all about. And I'll sit there and go, oh, really deep, you know. But then I go, oh, right. And it makes you think. So I actually have no issue with that at all. I mean, you know, I've spoken to people who believe in auras and all this stuff, and it's, from a scientific and rational perspective, it's blatantly obvious that it's hokum. But there are people that get agency out of it. So am I going to say that they're idiots? Well, maybe I have the right to say they're idiots, because they have as long as they have the right to say what they think, I have got the right to say, but that doesn't mean that it's not got agency.
When we're allowed to meet up in person, I'm going to bring my angel tarot cards, and I'm going to do a reading for you. Let me tell you, I've always said, I've had angel tarot cards for years, and I've always said, tarot cards for me show me what my subconscious is thinking. How I interpret what that card means to me is my decision, but it brings out some things that are in my subconscious that I may not have thought about. So I'm totally with you on that one. Absolutely with you on that one.
Things can be, and I mean, one of the things that I love, one of my favorite, and I'm not keen on car bumper stickers and, you know, quotes and Simon Sinek model of leadership, but one of the things I really like is this: is things can be real but not true. So, you know, you can feel a fear of something, and there is actually no danger, but you still feel fear. So that fear is real. The actual outcome isn't true, but the fear is real. And I mean, there's biological reasons for that. But to me, that it's a bit like, you know, watching a movie. You know, you get, if it's a good movie, it's not real, but it can draw you in. It can take you somewhere. You can learn from it. You can grow from a fable, or from a, you know, from a piece of music or anything. And these things are not necessarily real, but they have agency. I have no issue with that at all. I mean, I love comic books. I love fairy stories. I love myths, and I love it all. They're important. They're not true, but they're real. And I think that is certainly how I, you know, in the way I think, how I now see it. I don't like it when people push on to me things that they think are real and they want me to think are real, because there's no point. You know, if I might learn eventually that there's agency, but you need to give me time to absorb it. And I think that's why before, 10 years ago, I used to do that. You know, I would just say, shut up, you know, but not now. You know, if a QAnon person comes into the room, I'm not too keen to talk to them, but anyone else, you know, I'll talk to. And I think that's the agency. But the beauty of that, I'll say it again, the beauty of that story, for me anyway, and I'm sure, given what you've said, you're right, it's different for everybody, is that it demonstrates more to me what you are about, helps me understand you a bit more, and that means there's more empathy between you and me. And by heck, do we need more empathy in the world? So
you're absolutely right. I think the thing that it's left me with, if you had to ask me, you know, what has it left you with? What do you believe? It's simply that I wouldn't have been through the things that I've been through if I wasn't meant to share them. And it's a bit of a dough moment, because when I look back to that poem that I wrote, the last line, and I remember reading this poem to you in Athens when we were speaking together.
I remember that.
In a bar one night. That was lovely, a lovely night that was.
Yeah, it was.
And I think the last line says, you know, I tried to recreate this poem, you know, because I tried to recreate it. Maybe that's why it chose me, because I had I could put it into words and show other people what I'd been through. And I guess I've always believed that when I go through things, there have to be lessons for me to share with other people. There has to be a reason. So there's this, and it's not being a fatalist in any way, shape or form. It's thinking actually there's a reason to my life, and I need that. I need to feel wanted and needed, because that's who I am. I need that, you know, and feeling that I have a purpose is incredibly important to me. So that's how it serves me. It makes me feel that there's something bigger and more important than me, than any individual, that has to get out there, that has to be shared, and who knows what will come of it.
Yes. I mean, you will, I would imagine, get a fairly polarized response. You will get the crystal warriors on one side. I'm joking, but you'll get them on the one side to say, oh, it's great, it's amazing. And you'll get the others on the other side that will say, well, you've got apoptosis, you've got, you know, all the scientific jargon you like about pattern formation and about, you know, false connections between things that are not actually, they're correlated, but they're not connected. And there's these two different, one great scientist called them magisteria. You know, you've got these two different magisteria. But see, I think what's interesting about this is that encouraging a central path, you know, we need to, because as someone, right, say I'm on that side and you're on that side, the only way that humanity is going to proceed is if we do that. You know, doing that, and this is where, well, today we're doing this on the day that that Biden gets sworn in as the new president of the United States, and the difference between him, whatever you think of Biden, doesn't really matter, or Trump, but Trump was that, Biden's that. And personally, I believe that is the way forward, collaboration. I don't think there's any way to, and that means that even if I really don't, but even if I thought that was had no agency, and I don't believe that, but even if I thought that, for me to then dismiss it would just be to behave like Trump. And I don't think that's a good thing to do in 2021. I just don't. We're over that. You know, the last time we had it, it was called the Dark Ages. It was called the Dark Ages for a reason, because religion took over the world and the world went completely to shit, you know, because they created that. But equally, if we went all the other way, it would just be as bad, you know, so you can't, it's got to be like that.
I've always kind of thought of myself as of this part of me being a kind of bridge between those two identities.
Yeah.
And actually saying it's safe for you to hop over and visit the other side and then go back again if you want to. It's safe. I'm a safe bridge because I don't have an opinion. So I really do think there is an element, a third element of people that maybe my story will reach. And those are the people that have said, well, I've always been very scientific about things, but something happened to me and I've always brushed it under the carpet. Maybe I should revisit that.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe there's a third element of people who are willing to walk along the bridge.
Absolutely. I mean, forgive me, you can edit this out if you don't want to have it in your own whatever, but I had an experience with religion where I saw a guy, I think I told you this before, I saw a guy on Nicky Campbell's morning show, you know, the debate show that he has on a Sunday. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
The Big Question, is it the Big Question? Oh, I can't remember, something like that, it doesn't matter. And there was this guy on, and I thought he was talking absolute nonsense, right? And he was just one of these religious people that believed that his religion was the right religion and all the other 3,000 religions were wrong. And the man was just talking plainly in my rationalist brain, talking nonsense. So I got in touch with him and he invited me to his church. And it so happened that he was a Caribbean evangelical Christian. So he was on one of the Christian religions. And he invited me to speak at his church in London. And I spoke about good without God to 400 rampant Taliban Christians, you know, the ones that have got guitars that are singing Kumbaya. Yeah. That sort was one of the best experiences of my life. I spoke for half an hour and I left the church 4 hours later because we had so many questions. We didn't need to get involved in whether I believed in God or they believed in God. There was none of that. all we did was talk about what was good and what was bad and how we should proceed. And that's exactly what you've just described.
That's beautiful, Scott.
Yeah, that was it. And that changed my view. I mean, I was a shit. I mean, I was very like, nah, I'm not interested. I had some issues in my childhood with religion, which I do speak about sometimes, but I was too close-minded to that. So now I don't tread that path. So I'm on you in the middle of that path. Maybe I'm going slightly one way and you're going slightly the other, but I'm with you on that middle path.
There's one other thing which I don't know
Yeah.
if I should mention.
On you go.
But in the aftermath of the tsunami, when we were in Jimmy Lowell's garden for a week, what I found out, because the whole dive team were there, when we got back to the UK, I was trying to help people to get over the trauma and the grief that we'd had. And I thought one of the ideas would be, if everyone wrote their experiences down, gave them to me, I would write a book, collate them all and write a book, and we could sell that book. And put all of the proceeds of it into the Hikkaduwa Village Fund, which was the charity that we created, and it would help people to get that emotion out as well. One of the things that I came across is that every single person that I spoke to told me that for the entire week they had an earworm. Now, I had an earworm, and Stuart had an earworm. But apparently we all had an earworm. We all had one song that kept going round and round our heads. Now, Stuart's song was Protection by Massive Attack. And I can tell you, you know the story, Scott. Stuart went into solid protection mode of me, and he didn't come out of protection mode. I don't think he ever has. You know, there was a turning point where he just went into protection mode over me, and he put my life before his, you know. And it's really strange. That's our song, you know. For me, I had a song that was going around in my head that I kept starting to sing and then shutting myself up because I thought, I can't sing that, I can't sing that. And my song was Amazing Grace. Now, it was a little while ago. Very, very lovely friend of many people in the speaking world, Joy Marsden. I went to her funeral, which was a joyous occasion, and that song came on, and the heavens opened when that song came on, and we all went into singing Amazing Grace, and I sang at the top of my lungs. I sang that song because it just resonates with me so much, and I think it was in that moment that I suddenly realised what a profound connection that song had to what I was going through.
Right.
If I look back now, I told you that I don't think I would have seen what I saw if I didn't have that calm space, if I hadn't had that calm space around me to allow me to look and see what was going on. If you think about the words to Amazing Grace, that's exactly the same thing. It's saying, I was blind, now I see. Something was making me wake up and see things from a different perspective. So maybe this is a deep subconscious. Maybe we have such an intelligence in our subconscious that we have no idea that it's playing us along with it, you know, all for the whole path of our lives. Who knows? I don't know. But I just thought it was so magnificent. Every one of us had an earworm, a song that meant something to us and stayed with us for the whole time we were out there as refugees.
That's lovely. That's lovely. I think I can't really add anything to that because I think taking inspiration from things that then become useful, it's perfect. I can't think of anything else to say about it. It's a good thing. It's a thing we can encourage people to do. We can help people remember things through, you know, artifacts or music or smell or whatever it is. And I don't think many people think about that, Michelle. Thank you very much. That was a lovely story. I'm quite touched that you told me that, and I hope people enjoy it. I mean, I feel quite inspired by it, and I definitely feel like I knew you anyway, but I know a little bit more about what makes Michelle tick. So come to the end, but what I will do is I'll put a link to the fuller story, the other part of the story in the channel. I think it's one of the best discussions I've ever had on the channel, the one when Michelle and I spoke about her tsunami experience. So please watch it. It's really, really good, and it makes you feel good. And particularly in these difficult times, it is truly a story of human magnificence. You're magnificent, Michelle Mills Porter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. I don't deserve that, but thank you.
Thank you. Right, so you ready?
I am. Your hair looks cute, by the way. Rainbows and unicorn farts.
This is it. It's the corona hair. It's getting longer and longer and longer. Anyway, I should have put a shirt on, eh? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, you should have had a shirt on anyway.
Good Bangladeshi accent there.
Yeah, I know. Don't want a shirt on.
Or
It's
sure.
atrocious, Scott. Atrocious.